Polls in this country suggest support for Justin Trudeau's Liberals is at its lowest since Election Day. The last 3 months in particular have seen a sharp decline, and by now you can pick your grievance. The pipelines decision, the broken promise on electoral reform, the cash for access controversy, all of the above. And yet, the fascination with, or perhaps the objectification, is a better word, of our Prime Minister is a global phenomenon, to the point that photos of young Justin Trudeau were going viral this past week on credible news sites. Also, GQ, the men's fashion magazine, even went so far as declaring that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is an A-plus thirst trap. Apparently, a thirst trap is a photo or image designed to get attention, generating thirst, to use the parlance of our times. But is this objectification really okay? Would it be so much fun if our Prime Minister were a woman? And is there a storm brewing where Justin Trudeau's likability won't be able to save him? We're back with round 3 of the Sunday Scrum. Susan Riley and John Ibbotson in Ottawa, and Rob Breckenridge joins us from Calgary. All right, let me start with a tweet that I got from Lloyd Carey. And Susan, I'm going to start with you. Don't need another sex object. We already have Don Cherry laugh out loud. We desperately need a credible Prime Minister. That's from Lloyd Carey.
Right. Well, I don't think the two are incompatible. I think that part of Justin, first of all, I don't think it's a bad thing to be considered sexy and attractive in politics. It's rare, but I don't think it can be a bad thing. And in the case of Justin Trudeau, Liberals in the United States are in love with Trudeau, but it's not just because of his way, the fact that he jogs everywhere and he's got gray hair. It's because he embodies Liberal ideas that they see under threat in their country. So I think they're wrong. I think he's moving away from a lot of his Liberal promise here in Canada on the ground. But that, I think, is part of his appeal. It's political as well as physical.
Yeah, John, what do you make of this? He's an avowed feminist. I mean, you have these pictures of Justin Trudeau as a young man, the shirtless photos, the Vanity Fair spreads, the GQ spreads. He's a star, not just a politician. If this was a woman, you know how this conversation would go.
Well, sure. But on the one hand, it's kind of healthy that we're now sexually objectifying men as well as sexually objectifying women. But to the deeper point, there are a lot of American progressives, millions of them, who are in utter despair at having Donald Trump as their president, and well, they should be. There are millions of Brits who are in despair over the referendum on Brexit. There are millions of European progressives who are in despair over the rise of far right-wing parties in almost every country on the continent. So they look to Canada and they see this island of progressive calm, this beacon of liberty, which, by the way, would be exactly the same, unchanged in any respect, if Stephen Harper had won the election and were still Prime Minister. But people tended not to swoon over Stephen Harper. So you get the combination of the multicultural, progressive, tolerant, diverse values that Canada has represented now for decades, and a sex symbol, and you get this kind of silly season in international media. But the fundamentals wouldn't have changed regardless of who was Prime Minister, male, female, sexy or not sexy.
There was that nude of Prime Minister Stephen Harper, by the way.
That really drove sales in the media, I can tell you.
I think it went for a lot of money, a lot more than they thought it was going to go for. Rob, what do you make of this? And let me add this into the, well, I'll ask the next question next. But Rob, what do you make of this star power of our Prime Minister versus the popularity drop at home?
Let's distinguish a couple of things here, right? Because their websites, their whole business model is, look at this attractive person, and it's clickbait. Click here to see these pictures, right? So a lot of this is just silly clickbait. What I see, and look, Donald Trump and Justin Trudeau are very different people, certainly covered very differently by the international media, but at essence, I mean, both are celebrities, and both have, I think, used that celebrity to great political advantage, and that's why they're both where they are. So I think there's a lot of similarities there. I think the difference is that in the global scheme of things, maybe Canada is inconsequential. So to the international media, doesn't matter what Justin Trudeau does, what kind of policies he enacts. He's kind of a curiosity, where obviously there's a lot more concern about what the American president can do. Here in Canada, I think we've got past that, because he is our prime minister. He is making decisions that's impacting us on a regular basis. And I think we are a serious enough country that whatever we might have thought before about what a handsome and famous guy he is, he's now the head of government, and we're going to judge him accordingly, as we should.
You both mentioned, John and Rob, you both mentioned Donald Trump and drew the comparison to Donald Trump. Marco Gutierrez asks, what does the Sunday Scrum think of Justin Trudeau and Canada making it into Donald Trump's address to the U.S. Congress? John.
Well, of course, our hearts are always aflutter whenever an American president references Canada. In particular, Donald Trump was referencing the Canadian immigration system, which, if he looked at it more closely, would realize is antithetical to everything he believes. Here's the similarity and the difference between Trudeau and Trump. Both of them came to power on a kind of wave of popularity, with serious people asking serious questions about whether either of them is actually fit to govern. I think, I'm hardly an apologist for this Liberal government, I think you would agree, but I think after a year and a half, Justin Trudeau and his advisors and his cabinet have proved that whether you agree or disagree with this policy or that policy, they are fit to govern the country. They are serious leaders in a serious government doing a serious job, especially with the tweets coming out of Donald Trump yesterday, which are, essentially accusing the previous presidents of acts of treason. Mr. Trump has not demonstrated that he is fit to govern the United States, and that's the singular difference between them.
I'm sorry. And Justin Trudeau is definitely more fit. Just period, more fit. I mean, part of his appeal is generational. Yeah. He went to Victoria this week with Sajjan to tour a military, I think, Esquimalt, the Navy base at Esquimalt, and they went for like a 20-minute jog, or maybe it was longer than that, but they went for a jog first. The media was invited. Next week, in coming days, he's going down to New York City to Broadway to see Come From Away, the play that's been written about Gander, Newfoundland.
Yeah.
He'll make a big splash there, I'm sure. But more importantly, coming week, he's going to Houston for an energy conference, Energy and the Environment Conference, which will include CEOs from all the major oil companies in North America and around the world.
And that's an issue.
Going to try to make this awkward case that I think is completely without foundation, that somehow you can marry environmental progress with this massive investments that he's proposing in pipelines and the tar sands. So that's where content clashes up against image.
And that is what we will be watching for this week, along with a slew of other things as well. That is all the time we have for this week. Goes by so quickly. Thank you to the Sunday Scrum freelance columnist Susan Riley, John Ibbotson of the Globe and Mail, and joining us this week from Calgary, AM 770's Rob Breckenridge. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Carol.
Thanks, Carol.